Welcome to the Focus and Chill podcast, where we discuss productivity tactics that work for neurodivergent individuals.
Every episode, we interview guests with lived experience of neurodiversity who also have a solid productivity and habit game, and pass the learnings on to you, our wise and benevolent audience.
We're your hosts, Jeremy and Joey.
I'm Joey, and I coach creatives to get moving on their most ambitious projects through the power of solid habits and strong focus. I'm also a perpetual student of psychology and perpetually on a quest to a one-armed chin-up.
And I'm Jeremy, a neurospicy software developer turned startup founder, building the Focus Bear app to help people with ADHD and autism thrive at work. My cool party trick is leaving parties early so I can get to sleep in time for my 2-hour-long morning routine. The Focus and Chill podcast is brought to you by Focus Bear, a focus enhancement app for ADHDers. That's adults with both combined autism and ADHD. I'm Jeremy, I'm an ADHDer myself. I'm the founder of Focus Bear and also one of the hosts of this podcast. I built Focus Bear for myself originally because I was constantly getting distracted by my phone and my laptop. I wanted a way to tame my ADHD monkey mind so I'd stop going down rabbit holes and actually get work done, but also get off my computer and my phone in the evening so I'd be able to sleep properly. It's working perfectly for me and it's helping a lot of ADHDs as well. I'd love for you to try it. It's available for Mac, Windows, iOS and Android, and it leverages most of the productivity strategies we talk about on the podcast. You can jump onto focusbear.io or just Google Focus Bear and try it out. Let me know what you think.
Welcome to episode number 97 of the Focus and Chill podcast. I'm thrilled to be joined by Pip Scott Allen today. Born and raised in Canada, Pip first started to explore the team building and leadership world at the young age of 14. Since then, Pip has enjoyed careers in outdoor education, backcountry guiding, adventure travel, summer camps, lifeguard, tourism organizations, and now he focuses his love and passion exclusively on leadership culture and team building. Being diagnosed with ADD in college, he leans into this skill set to help him grow his business, inspire leaders, and make an impact to businesses across Australia. Pip founded Premier Team Building 6 years ago. It's really great to have you on the show, Pip.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate the opportunity.
It'd be great to hear about your insights. So can we start with hearing about your experience of being diagnosed with ADD in college? Did you anticipate that while you were in high school or did it come out of the blue?
I always knew I was a bit spicy. I like to say neurospicy, but growing up, I think one of the reasons my diagnosis took so long was I had a lot of big young life events that kind of just overshadowed the behavior you get with young people with ADHD. My parents were having divorce, so there's a lot of other things. I was very sporty, so I had a lot of outlets. And so there was definitely a lot of warning signs, but there was also a lot of really good excuses for my parents to not look into that pathway. And I went through a series of other testing for developmental delays and other things when I was younger. And one of the biggest takeaways was that I just didn't care for a lot of things I was doing. And so they never put two and two together that maybe it's how it's being delivered and it's not just more so an ADD thing. So during college, I had a roommate. He came home one day and he had all these brand new laptops and stuff and explained to us that he got bursary because he has an auditory delay. And we were quite jealous. He's like, well, you all, my other roommate, he's like, you both have ADD. You could do this. We're like, really? We both knew that we did. It was never to us a thing that was going to allow us extra support. It was just kind of something that we had to learn to deal with. Through high school, I definitely knew I had it. And, it was just something I was learning to deal with on my own. There was still quite a time where only bad kids really get diagnosed with it because it's a much more of a behavior thing. So yeah, it was a kind of a surprise. It was also a relief to get the diagnosis. It was kind of that I told you so. See a lot of people in my life. So it was nice to get that answer.
And did it make a difference in terms of getting extra support and a different way of thinking about yourself as well?
Yeah, definitely. So in transparency, until recently, I've never sought out any real support. The careers I was focusing on and how my life was laid out, having ADD or ADHD was just a good tool for me to have. I definitely learned a lot more strategies and had to develop a lot of personal tools to handle and cope with it. But I never, until recently, started to seek outside supports. I just learned to leverage the tools I had. And at that time, I didn't necessarily understand the coping techniques I was using. It's been much later on as I've got more self-development and self-exploration to understand why I do certain things that I've realized I've had these coping techniques. I've used these tools from a younger age.
I was looking at your bio and thinking that your career seems perfect for someone with ADHD. Adventure travel, being outdoors a lot, lifeguarding, they all have the right mixture of having a lot of stimulation and being outdoors and exercise and all of that.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, growing up, I spent a lot of time on the stage doing a lot of theater and acting and stage performance. I was in a few bands. So I was always doing a lot of things that required an output of energy that was very dopamine seeking. At that time, I didn't really recognize that's what it was. That's why I found myself doing certain things. But as I've reflected more, I can definitely see, I get now why I enjoyed running summer camps, because it was chaos for 2 months and it was just nonstop dopamine seeking. We look at my careers, you can kind of see they all make sense as to why I've done that.
Yeah. And have you found now that you're operating at a level where you've got a lot of people working under you and the structures that you've created, you're probably doing less of the custom-facing work now? And is that where you mentioned that you're seeking more support now? Is that potentially why?
Definitely, yeah. In the past few years, I've realized where a lot of my limitations have lied because of this, and in particular because I've never really sought outside support. So I'm having to employ people to really support me in different areas, outsource certain aspects of the business. It's really weird. A lot of people talk about growing a business so you get off the tools. For me, I don't want that. So when I'm growing my business, I'm trying to grow the admin side. So I stay doing the front facing, what I love to do, because that's where the business really thrives and where I thrive. But yeah, the past few years has really been learning, what my weaknesses are and respecting those as well, and trying not to beat myself up has been a big challenge at times. It can be very hard and very disheartening when you sit in front of your computer for 6 hours and you've done nothing because you just can't. You're just like that paralysis mode. So realizing that I need support and need people to delegate to has been a big win for me in the business and personally.
Yeah, same here. I love the way you put that it sounds like you're able to lean into your strengths in working with teams and I guess being on stage as well a bit.
I want to be happy. I want to enjoy what I do. And so I don't want to stop doing what I love, but I recognize the things that I'm not good at. And I respect that and find the best people to surround myself with who strengthen my weaknesses. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. You're not dealing with self-recrimination about, for me, forgetting to organize appointments and a bunch of that admin stuff that I forget because I've got all these other ideas.
That's right. Yeah. And it's like a lot of people will look at certain things I do and they're like, you are so organized. And it's like, no, I'm so unorganized that I have to be really organized with everything I do. Like when it comes to any meeting, I have all these different calendar links I send to people. I'm like, I live and die by my calendar because I know I will forget every minute thing. So for me, it's having to compensate in some areas, or like recognizing where my weaknesses are and kind of go, what do I need to do to set myself up for success with tools that I can use rather than just, I think there's a lot of great tools out there for people, but they don't suit my needs or everyone's needs. So I've had to develop a lot of systems myself to help me.
Love to hear more about that in a bit. Can we talk a bit more about your work now? For the audience about what you do with Premier Team Building?
Yeah, definitely. So Premier Team Building, we are a result-driven team building and leadership organization. So our focus is work with organizations to help them develop positive cultures, better leadership, really supporting the organization to reduce staff turnover, but more importantly, keeping the right people employed and building great cultures. That looks like, some hands-on, en masse team building activities. In mid 2024, we did Australia's largest Lego team building event. Close to 600 people, 1,000 kilos of Lego. So a very high stimulus, a lot of moving parts, but a lot of creativity, which is where I really thrive, creating these very elaborate out there activities. But then we also do the leadership focused team development, leadership coaching. When I talk to people, if it's leadership and culture, that's my jam. If you want to talk about business systems and structures, talk to somebody else. That's not me. So it's very much, if you want to build better cultures, empower people, learn to be the best leader possible, and have amazing time with your people, that's what we do. And I love it.
Sounds really important. Do you work mainly with larger businesses, or is it a combination?
It's a combination. I personally believe that small businesses, when they're given the opportunity to have access to tools that large businesses do, it's going to allow them to grow and succeed. So we definitely work with teams as small as 4 or individual leaders. So someone who is recognizing that they're going to scale their business and they're going to bring people in, we'll support them by coaching and certain programs to help them design their culture so that when they bring the first person in, it's already on the right foot. So we're not having to fix problems. But then again, on the other end, we've worked with Google and Amazon, the Defense Force here in Australia, New South Wales government. So we work with small micro teams to the multinationals as well.
Amazing. Was Australia's largest Lego project, was that 600 people from one organization who were all building?
It was. Yeah, wow. So it was one team, and I think we had 560 was like their final head count, but felt like more. And their goal was to build a community, so a city. So each team of 15 people had their own resources of Lego, and they had to build, be it their office or a famous restaurant from around the corner from their office, apartment buildings, houses, hospitals, all these different parts. And at the end, they came together to create a city, and they also had to make their own personalized minifigures that represented each one of them as well. So it was loud, chaotic, lots of moving parts. And it was amazing to see how well they did that in an hour and a half. They had a very low amount of time. And so they did it. Everyone's like, oh, that must have been a few hours. And like, no, it was an hour and a half. I had to push them. At one point, it was going to be an hour. I'm like, I need 30 minutes more. So it was amazing.
That sounds incredibly memorable.
Definitely. And we're working with them again this year on a different program. And they said that the Lego event we did with them last year was their best turnout they ever had for people. And they had an amazing amount of positive feedback. So they're already expecting we'll have similar numbers this year for a new and different event that we're working with them on. So it was very memorable for us and for them. It's been a great relationship for us to build with their staff.
Absolutely. In terms of how you see team building working in general, I guess there's those peak experiences where it's formal team building. Do you also coach leaders and coach teams in how to build culture and tightness during normal work interactions as well?
Yeah, definitely. So that's like a lot of the higher end stuff that we do with a lot of the executive and managers is really helping them understand what culture is and how they can develop it for whatever means they want. And I think it's really important to recognize that culture is not inherently good nor bad. What I view as a bad culture is probably really successful for a lot of people, and different people fit different environments. It's a relationship. And so we often work with our executives and leaders to help them understand who the company is as a person, the ethics and values that the company and them as leaders all have to share, have them come to an understanding of this is our values, this is our culture, these are what we want to represent, to then make sure that the people they've surrounded themselves with are suitable for that said relationship and that they carry those same ethics and values. I call it the ecology of culture, trying to understand how different people impact it in a positive and negative way. And at times you need to remove a weed from your garden because it's not suitable, or you have to recognize you planted the tomatoes in the wrong spots and they're now taking over. So you need to move them to a different area. They're not inherently bad, but as a leader, we made a poor decision to put those individuals in that location.
Do you have any thoughts around how culture relates to neurodiversity as well? I've heard often from autistic people, including myself, that we've ended up being termed as cultural, I was going to say misfits, but that's probably a harsh term, but just often autistic people don't make it through cultural interviews because they don't align with the existing culture. And there's the idea of cultural addition versus cultural fit. Do you have any thoughts on that in relation to neurodiversity?
Definitely. as someone who's neurospicy, I do believe that not everybody is right for every business and every culture. I look at for me, it's a very much a relationship. I've had a lot of failed relationships because I wasn't the right person for them. And so I recognize that not everyone's going to be suitable for the right culture, but culture is made up of a lot of different moving parts, and a diverse ecosystem is a healthier ecosystem. If we look at it in the ecology aspect, when you look at like an old growth forest, you have all these great big trees that block out all the sunlight, and there's nothing much going on the bottom. It's not a very diverse ecosystem. But the second some of those trees go, we have a flourish of life below. Like after a bushfire here in Australia, we see how fast things change and how diverse the ecology becomes. So for me, it's really valuable to have people of different skills, different, neuroprogramming, because we all bring different characteristics. No good team is made up of the same kind of people. If I was to build a business full of people who are just like me with the exact same skill set, the business would fail because they would only strengthen my strengths and strengthen my weaknesses in the same regard. Like all those things, I'm not a number guy. So if I don't have anyone deal with the numbers, the business is going to fail. So I believe when it comes to bringing people in through a culture review process, it's understanding that we can be all unique in our own right. And for me, culture, it's values. And just because you're on the autism spectrum, do you believe that, equality and fairness is important? Yes, I do. Well, if that's one of your core values, how that person portrays it in an outward fashion doesn't really matter. Their actions are going to reflect somebody who cares about inclusion, equality, and respect. So I think a lot of organizations do need to change how they approach their cultural parts. If you're talking to an organization who's very focused on, we like going to the pub every Friday night. Well, you have a drinking culture, you don't have a work culture. So you're going to automatically ostracize people who don't drink or who don't like loud places or busy places or that kind of social environment. So it's important to recognize that whatever you're doing to develop your culture needs to be varied and inclusive and support a variety of different individuals.
Yeah, 100%. That last example really hits the nail on the head for me with my current job, that a lot of the cultural activities are related to drinking, and I don't drink and I don't like loud environments. So
that's it. And we often, we say, there's a clear difference between team building and team bonding. So they're very different things. Bowling, pub, dinner out, archery tag, those are all bonding events. If you and I don't like one another, we're not going to sit next to each other and talk while we're bowling. I'm going to be with the people I like. So those kind of activities are not necessarily going to strengthen anything. They can even cause a deeper divide. And if I'm not a receptive leader, I might kind of go, well, Jeremy's not being engaged. Like, well, he doesn't like this environment. It's like you've chosen something designed deliberately to ostracize an audience, where our programs, when I have somebody say, or I realize that someone is on the spectrum, is that fantastic. Let's move you into this area where you're going to thrive. And we try to make it as inclusive as possible to showcase how amazing people are when you put them in the right environment.
I love that. And when you're not involved in these type of programs, running them, what do you like doing in your spare time?
Definitely. So one of my big goals for this year is definitely getting back outdoors. So I've been doing a lot more hiking and camping, even by myself. So doing a lot more long hikes, just wandering the forest, which is quite nice. Spending time with my dogs and my wife. We enjoy watching a good horror movie and going to live music. Where we're located, we're quite close to some nice vineyards, so I can take her out and she go do some wine tasting and we can go experience some local attractions. But the big goal for this year is to get more back into my love of hiking, and that's a big drive for right now. I've been doing a lot more of that.
Wonderful. What part of Canada did you grow up in?
I grew up in Northern Ontario, so Toronto, and a few hours north of there. So first it was 2 hours above Toronto, then I went 9 hours north to where I went to college, university. So quite remote, quite cold, absolutely loved it, but a very quiet place. So being in cities sometimes is a weird experience.
Yeah. So you would have had a lot of nature out there.
Very, very much so. It was, my program was all about being in the outdoors. So we were outside nearly every day in the forest doing different things. It was very vast. We'd trip to school, the teachers be like, oh, we're going to go for a hike instead, or we're jumping the bus and we're going to go look at these rocks. So it was very hands-on, very experiential, and it really served my learning styles very well. And yeah, it was a great way just to go explore and see more of the country.
Wonderful. I guess in some ways, Newcastle is the perfect city in Australia there, where it's not as busy as Sydney, and you've got, as you said, a lot of nature nearby.
That's it. And when I lived in Sydney, it definitely didn't tickle me in the right way. Like, for example, when I first moved to university, which was 9 hours north, it was actually a little bit larger of a city than where I grew up before. And it took me about 6 months to realize that when I heard a car, it wasn't somebody at my house. It was just somebody driving past. So where I grew up as a teenager, it was, if you heard a vehicle, someone was in your driveway. So it took me a long time to adapt to that. And when I lived in Sydney for a few years, same idea, cars and trains was far too much. So I always chose to be on the outside of Sydney to be away from all that chaos. But now where we are, it's quiet. It's easy to get to places and easy to get away from the places that really bother me.
Lovely. I lived in Sydney for a bit as well, and I had a similar experience of finding it far too busy.
Yeah. My now wife, she lived just down the road from the train line. And so when I visited her, I could hear the trains every hour and the airplanes every couple hours. And it's like, how do you do this? And so I didn't visit her as much. I always try to convince her to come visit me because it's much quieter. And she was like, it's too quiet. I'm like, it's perfect.
Earlier, you mentioned that you've developed a bunch of different productivity tools for yourself. Be great to hear about those.
Definitely. For productivity tools, there's so many different ones on the market. So I've definitely taken inspiration from different ones, but I also don't beat myself up when something doesn't work, because I do believe that everyone has their own coping techniques and abilities. So one of the ones that I find is the most successful one for me is I call it my kill list. It's a little target list you can't see on the video, where basically it has kill list and it has no more than 5 items on it. So for me, I'll start my day off and I'll write, 5 things that I need just to kill it. So I'll put my full heart intention in, I'll put deadlines, and that's what I need to focus on today. Those are the most important things for the day. And then once the kill list has been wiped off, I can then look to add things. Because what I find that with to-do lists, someone's always able to add more to your to-do list. Your to-do list never ends. For me, like the wife is like, oh, cool. Can you go mow the lawn? Fantastic. And then can you do this? And then can you do so a to-do list always grows. The kill list, got 5 things. It's based off for me, the principle of an assassin. I'm not going after everybody. I'm going after like one or a couple targets. When the job's done, I can move on. And so that for me has been a big game changer, because it's allowed me to shift my mindset into focusing on being productive with output versus being busy. And that's a big thing that I definitely struggled with for a long time. And it took me a fair few years to realize that just because I'm busy and I'm creating a lot of movement doesn't mean I'm actually doing anything. And so I did some reflection. I looked back and I realized, this past week, I was really busy. What did I do? And I went, nothing. Like I didn't really achieve anything. So now for me, the kill list, if I can get these 5 things, or sometimes it's just one thing, and that's what my attention needs. Sometimes something more important does come in, but it really needs to be. If it's something pops up, I can add to like a to-do list, knowing that I can go gather information from later, but the kill list is my focus. Noise canceling headphones, music is a big thing. So when I'm struggling, I'll put my headphones on with my music. So I have that stimulus, but it's also blocking out the outside. And another productivity tool for me are my fidgets. I've found an amazing company here in Australia that has their metal fidgets, and I take them absolutely everywhere with me. And those really help me keep on track and focus. But for like the number one productivity one is kill list and time blocking as well. So if I'm looking at a project, if it's a simple task, I put a timer on. I've got an hour to get this done. And after that hour, I can take a break. I can go walk around the house. I can go do something. I can give myself that extra reward. But I've got an hour to accomplish so much. And for me, for productivity, they've been really beneficial for me personally to implement these.
Interesting. When you first said kill list, I thought it was more about killing anything that isn't in the top priorities, but it's sort of The to-do list becomes the things that you don't do, and the kill list is the top 5 things that you will do first. I like it.
And I've got to-do lists, and like things can constantly get added to it. I'll start my morning off and I'll have no idea what to do for the day. So I'll look at my to-do list and kind of go, these are like really important. Like I need to start working on these. Those are my to-do list. And some days I'll go through 5 kill lists because I've been so productive, or the tasks haven't been so big that they consume a lot of time. But it's to know, like, what do I do next? The next thing on my to-do list is I need to work on the landing page for the website. Fantastic. 2 hours working away. Nothing's going to stop me from that. And then once that's done, swipe it off the list, go to the next item. And once the list is done, I'll look at the to-do list for inspiration or see if anything else has come through that day that takes priority. It's definitely been the biggest game changer for me.
What type of music do you like listening to?
Personally, I love my punk and metal and ska. Do you know what ska is? Vaguely, it's punk with reggae and jazz. So a little slower with some nice beats. I've been listening to a lot more Midwest emo as well. So some slower acoustic stuff. I definitely pair the task with the music. If I need something with a bit more focus, I might turn it to a bit of slower genre music, like some Midwestern emo. So something a bit like State Champs or Knuckle Puck, some of those bands. And if I need something with a lot of creativity, I'll listen to something faster that's just going to get me moving in a more mental flow state. So I definitely change a lot during the day.
I like that.
Do you listen to music as well? Is that one of your techniques, or?
Yeah, I used to listen to a lot of trance music when I was trying to do focused work. So I found anything with lyrics would put me off. But now I find that it spikes my anxiety. So I listen more to classical music when I'm working. That seems to be soothing and helps me stay in the zone. Maybe I should try some Midwestern emo.
I do find that when I'm trying to be productive, I'm not listening to anything new. So if I really need that focus and productivity, I want to listen to like maybe Knuckle Puck or a certain band, a certain album, because like you said, the lyrics, I know the lyrics, so I'm not having to necessarily focus on what are they saying. I can sing along because it's programmed in me already. And then when I'm going to the gym or doing something else, I'll listen to a bunch of random music to expand my collection of music. But when that key focus, I want known, trusted artists and songs. So I'm not being distracted by, something new. Yes.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there anything that doesn't work for you that maybe people talk about being really good in general, that you've tried it and hasn't worked?
I see so many people with all these different planners and schedulers. And whilst like I live and die by my calendar, I've got one calendar. I have my kill list and all these lists. When I see people with like, here's my full day of Monday laid out and everything is dialed in. For me, that doesn't work. A lot of times my days are upended. So those kind of like preset, really rigid schedules don't work well for me. Too quiet as well, because like you need a quiet environment. I do not need a quiet environment. It's quiet is not a good space for me. I can't think of other things that just don't work. My wife could probably rattle off 50 things. And I'm drawing blank on what doesn't work, but I know what does work well for me at least. So that's, I think, a win. What about you? Do you have any things that doesn't work, or?
Oh, it tends to vary day by day. The quiet side of it is interesting because you've chosen a place to live, which is quiet, but within that space, you have some noise and some stimulation, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. The quiet's good because it's trusted and known sound. So it's not, I don't hear vehicles, I don't hear trains. So it's like, I wonder where they're going. I'm not having any of those distractions. So like, if it's windy or the rain blowing, it's like, oh, I know what that is. Like it's a very simple understanding of the noise. But you're right. It is interesting that I like the noise of music, but I don't like the busyness of a city. I hadn't thought of that. So it's quite interesting.
What doesn't work for me is the idea of focusing on one thing for the whole day. I tend to need to mix it up a little bit, even though in theory, it probably would be more productive if I just did one thing for the whole day. I find that very hard to stick to, and I get more task aversion versus if the way you were describing it, you've got 5 things. Are they all themed together, or would it be landing page and then something quite different as the second
quite
item?
Different. So like, let's have a look. So like, where's what I had from yesterday? See if we can do that list. So yesterday I had to follow up with a client in Tasmania. I had to work on a webpage for Newcastle. I had to review all my clients in the past year to make sure their details were on the website, and then do an email blast or prepare an email campaign for Christmas. That was yesterday's tasks. So all over the shop. And at times, like I said, with the kill list, I'll quite often break things. Like I'll give myself an hour and then I can bounce to something different. But it's always working on those key things. So I'm the same way. One job all day, I get bored. I do need the flexibility to bounce between those key tasks, but it's still to keep myself from wandering too far. I use that to say, you can bounce between these 5. That's how far your leash is.
Yeah, nice. And embedded within that schedule is you work for an hour and then you take a break. And for that reason, we'll take a break now.
Oh, thank you.
Hi there, Focus and Chillers. Are you ready to supercharge your knowledge in the realms of creativity, tech, and psychology? Come check out my fortnightly newsletter. In each edition, you'll get quick wins and actionable takeaways that you can put into practice right away. If this sounds like you, I'd love to have you as a reader. Subscribe for your fortnightly dose of insights. The link is in the show notes. And now, let's get back to the show.
All right, we're back from our break. And now we were just talking about how a super rigid schedule doesn't really work for you. I'm curious about how your morning routine or your mornings might look. Do you do a certain thing each day, or does it vary from day to day when you wake up first thing?
It varies. I do have a few things that I try to be consistent with. For example, one of the things I'm trying to do more this year is to get back in the pool and do more swimming. So I've chosen Tuesday morning to be the day I try to go to the pool. I go to the gym most other mornings, but otherwise I'm not all awake first thing in the morning. I get up around 4 a.m. a lot of the time. So it actually flows in from my evening routine. My evening routine is to address everything that I'm going to forget to do in the morning and take away barriers to my success. So for me, I think it's easier for me to think about it from the evening. So at night before I go to bed in particular, I'll get like my protein shakes, my pre-workouts, any vitamins I need. They're on the counter. I don't see them. I'm not going to take them. My clothes for work, my gym clothes, everything I need for the day is in my office, packed and ready to go because I have a home office. Because I know if I wake up at 4 a.m., it's like, oh, I didn't get my gym clothes out. Yeah, I'm going back to bed. For me, it's so simple. Just be like, that's too complex to solve in the morning. I don't want to wake my wife up. So a lot of what I do to be successful in the morning comes to me addressing my shortfalls the night before. So yeah, the last hour is me just running around the house being like, food's ready, this is ready, that's ready, everything's good to go. So when I wake up at 4 a.m., I walk out and go, oh, look, there's pills. Take pills, drink some water, go to the office, change into my gym clothes, pick up my gym bag, walk out, pre-workout, add water out the door. For me, that's how I mitigate. But otherwise, I don't meditate. I don't have any other rigid habits. I just try to start my day off with as little hurdles as possible to allow me to feel like I've been successful. And that's for me a big aspect of my morning routines. If I wake up and I realize I haven't done something, like to me, and I think a lot of us who are on the neurodivergent spectrum is like, I feel that as like a failure. So if I can get up and kind of go, look, like I'm dressed, I've done all these things, like success. I'm at the gym, success. I've done my workout, success, versus wake up. It's like, oh, nothing's ready. I can't think at this point. It's just like everything spirals. Like, no, I suck. And I give up. So that's my routine in a way. It's very, I don't have a set workout schedule. I try to focus on certain muscle groups, and on the way to the gym, I think about what I want to train based on how my body's feeling. And I have like a goal of 4 days to accomplish X things, but it's not super rigid because I do need to think like you, like there's that flexibility aspect of not being too rigid in what the process is.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible discipline there though. Getting up at 4 a.m. every day. Have you always done that?
No, I hate it. Again, it really is stemmed from overcoming failure. And for me, the idea of finishing work at 5 p.m. to have to convince myself, like I have a home office, I have to leave my house to go to the gym, or even when I had offsite office, if the gym wasn't between home and the office, I could stop off on the way home. Like there's an easy out. So there's nothing really more I can do at 4 a.m. except for go to bed or sometimes work, but I go to the gym. It's trying to maximize the least amount of failure I can have. And that's why I get up early. On a personal level, my wife is not a morning person, so she sleeps in. By me doing those things, I'm maximizing our time together afterwards, losing an hour and a half to 2 hours from transit or whatever after work. When she's home, I'm done for the day, and we're together and enjoying that time versus be like, I'll see you in a couple hours. And for me, that's where the discipline comes from. But again, it's driven by my fear and my focus on not failing and, skipping those aspects.
Makes sense. I had Michael on the podcast before, and he does 3:30 a.m., which is even more extreme.
It is, yeah. He's got a young baby as well, and so I tip my hats to him. He has a very aggressive routine. He and I were at the gym this morning together, and I also find the gym is quieter in the morning in a lot of places versus the afternoon. I can get to the gym with a rough plan of what I want. Worst case, someone's on the one piece of equipment I want. There's still 7 others that fit my workout. Whereas in the afternoon, you can walk in and kind of go, everything's being used. I give up. I can't handle this. And it's like overload, and out the door you go. So again, I really try to design my life around avoiding any potential setbacks, which isn't necessarily all that healthy in some regards, but it does allow me to be more successful in at least my fitness journey.
Yeah. And I guess the principle here is trying to avoid unnecessary executive functioning demands, that if you can avoid having to think about what to do, that's better. Having the workout clothes laid out.
Exactly. What are you wearing in the gym? I don't know. The clothes are in my chair. I walk in, I put them on, I'm out the door. If I have to think about where they are or choose something, it's like, right, it's those executive functions. If you're familiar with the spoon, I'm using too many spoons at 4 a.m. and I don't have any end of the day. For me, like, it's wake up and out the door. That's the executive decision I have to do in that whole entire process.
How long do you spend at the gym typically?
Between an hour, hour and a half.
Nice.
I enjoy doing a lot of weight exercises. I don't enjoy cardio, and everyone's like, oh, cardio is good. It bores me. I think it's because of the repetition of just like running on a treadmill or whatever it might be, or be on the bike for too long. It's, for whatever reason, that's so repetitive that I don't feel successful or I don't get the enjoyment from that. Whereas I could do this exercise, then onto that, and find a good level of dopamine in that process. So that's my personal enjoyment.
And especially when you're used to going out to hikes and getting your cardio that way, that's a lot more fun.
Yeah. And some of the people I train with are laughing because you hate cardio, but you'll go hike for 6 hours. And I get to see all these pretty trees and landscape, and every step is a different step. I'm like, when we're running back and forth in the gym, it's 2 walls we go back and forth between them. After 3 laps, I'm bored. Give me something different.
Yeah, 100%. What time do you go to bed to wake up at 4?
Usually between 9 and 10. I go to bed. Falling asleep is, as of late, I've been sleeping quite poorly, sadly. So I've been very, 4 hours of sleep sometimes, which has been less than ideal. But no, typically we usually go to bed between that 9 to 10 o'clock mark. Yeah.
And has that always been the way for you, that you do pretty well on that amount of sleep?
Yeah, I do. I'm definitely usually quite tired on a regular basis. Like, at the end of the day, I'm feeling a bit bored. I also get quite bored at night when it comes to, like, I can keep watching the same show over and over. For me, it's a lack of productivity. I just might as well go to bed and be productive sleeping. Or I'm definitely usually quite tired, so I fall asleep pretty quickly most of the time, which works well when you only have like 4 to 6 hours of sleep, because it's like, I fall asleep in 2 seconds because I'm always tired. But yeah, when I was younger, I slept a lot more. I was having a business to try to balance everything. A great way to get more productivity hours is to sleep less, which is not the healthiest option. So I don't recommend it, but it's sadly, it's a habit I'm trying to work on.
Yeah. And the way that you have your life set up, you front load your day with the hardest things at the start, going to the gym, doing the kill list, and then you can wind down in the evening.
And I feel good. I like wake up, there's no setbacks. You're at the gym. And if I don't do well lifting that day, I'm not upset because I still got the gym, and like that for me, the win. And that's easier to come back and have breakfast and work, and I'm already in a positive flow, versus if I wake up at 7 and start working, it's like, I feel like I take until 11 to even get, if I get into that positive flow, because I'm already starting from a loss. That's how I internalize it. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, if I'll have to try and psych myself up to waking up a bit earlier. I think, 5:30 a.m. would be good for me.
That everyone's like, you're a morning person. I'm like, oh no, I hate it. It's like, I don't enjoy waking up early, but it's easier than trying to convince myself to go to something after work hours and to expend all those additional spoons and all that executive function. At the end of the day, there's so many more steps involved after hours to accomplish that versus what else am I going to do at 4 a.m.? Like for me, it's sleep or go to the gym. I'll go to the gym.
Yeah. Nice. If people want to connect with you and find out more about Premier Team Building, where's the best place for them to connect with you online?
Sadly, I'm everywhere. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok. So it's Premier Team Building. We have a wolf as our logo, either white, black, or red. Keep our branding quite simple, and you can find us there. You can also find myself on LinkedIn as well. But yeah, most social platforms, you can find us, see the videos of our activities, and hear me talk about different topics. I'm easily accessible, to say the least.
Do you have any final words or asks to the audience?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest things that I've had to really work on is understanding my limitations and not blaming myself for those limitations, but then also finding a way to articulate that to my partner and to friends at times to really explain when I've had my fill. Are you familiar with like the spoon analogy? Yeah. Sometimes like I've been with some friends who are like, you're out of spoons. I'm like, I'm out of spoons. Like, I got you. And that's fine. I don't mind being out and being left alone, like just sitting by myself. I'll sit and play with my fidget. That's fine. And to be able to articulate that and to communicate that to friends and family has been a really big win. So I think for those who are still struggling with running out of spoons, feeling that overwhelmed, being able to understand why you feel that way, but be able to articulate it to somebody else and say, this is how I'm feeling, and not to feel guilty about it it's been a hard process for me. And I would recommend everyone practice on going easy on yourself and not beating yourself up for what we struggle to do. Like I said, for a lot of us, we're not lazy. We just can't make those executive functions. Like we're unable. There's so many steps. There's so many possibilities. We just can't get started. We want to, but we can't. So be forgiving with yourself is probably a big thing that I've learned, and would recommend anyone who's neurospicy, as I like to say, to, be kind to yourself, because I know when I'm not kind to myself, I spiral and it gets harder. So recognize and to call quits on something when I'm no longer in that flow. So yeah, be kind to yourself and find ways to articulate to those around you that you need a quiet moment, or it's time for you to go, or whatever your coping technique is, and be able to articulate that so that they can wear the brunt of the attention or help you navigate those situations.
Great advice.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Focus and Chill podcast. To listen to other episodes, jump onto podcast.focusbear.io. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or you know someone who'd be a good fit, email us at team@focusbear.io. Otherwise, stay focused, stay chilled, and peace out.